welcome everyone, and I'm happy to have you all today with the new session with Code with Sally. The session for Code with Sally will run every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. If for any reason you cannot make it to the live session and you want to catch up with what we covered, you can subscribe to the Code with Sally YouTube channel. You will see that we have two playlists, one for the English, one for the Arabic, and extra ones for miscellaneous. And I'll be adding more in the future as well. I'll be like splitting the sessions into smaller topics, so it's easier for anyone to find them related topics together. But anyway, the session will be recorded and the session will be published after we finish it on the same day or the day after. So if you cannot make it, I encourage you to check the playlist, go through the topics you missed, and then you can find me on LinkedIn or Slack, or you can message me by email even, and I will get back to you with the questions you have, the answers, or we will cover them in the next session. We usually leave like 10 or 15 minutes at the end to go through the questions. So feel free to check the video offline and get back to me if you have any questions. And I'll be checking and monitoring the session chat. So if you have questions, you can type the questions in the chat and I will get back to you. Today, we'll continue our journey with the SOQL and SOSL, but specifically with SOQL. We started the SOQL last time and we covered the basics. We covered, if you remember, we went through the basic like syntax, the required, that we need the select and we need the from to say what fields we want to get from which objects. And then we covered the where clause and we played a lot with the where clause. We wanted you to see the different operations like greater than, less than. We went through the like and how to use it, how to match a number of characters or to match one character if needed. We went through different as well methods or functions that can be used like today or last end days and next end days. And we saw how that can be useful in some conditions where you want to filter the results. Also, we went through the escape, the single quote, like the backslash that we use to escape the reserved characters, like single quotes and backslash. Also, we saw how the percentage and the underscore can be a reserved character in some cases when they are used with the like, otherwise they are not. And when they are reserved character and you want to use it in the like and you want to escape them, you have to use the backslash. And we went together and we saw different examples and we saw how that can impact the results that you are expecting to get back from your query. So pay attention about them, think and try to run your queries before using them straight in Apex and test that your query is doing exactly what you want. So today we'll continue our journey. We'll continue and we'll keep adding up to what we have built or we discussed last time. So we know by now the select and the from, how they are used and that they are required. We know as well the where clause, it's used to filter the results and how it's important and the different operations as we like refreshed our memory now. And the previous video for the last session will have all these details as well. Now we want to see how we can order our results and why it can be important and how we can sort it. So I will open as discussed last time. We have different tools that you can use. For me, I'm using the Chrome extension here, the Salesforce Inspector Reloaded. You can install it. You can use other tools that if you wish. First, let me bring here a SOQL statement that I have prepared. This one, we are selecting from account. We are getting the name, a field called custom created date, and another custom field that I created called future date. And we are getting the ones where the custom created date is not null. So I want custom created date to be populated. I don't care about the future date, but I want those to be there for me. Let's put here, I want to clear this, and I will use it to put the results for you before the sorting and after we do the sorting, so we can compare it next to each other. So this one is the result that we have without the sorting, without doing any sort. So we have everything returned in the order that the SOQL statement returned it for us. So you'll find here 2018, then 19, then 21, then 17, 24, same with the future date. So the sorting, sometimes you want to see on the screen the ones that in descending order, like the earliest, like the latest, and then the oldest at the end. So sometimes you want to do that. So to do that, we want to do order by. So we use the keyword order by. It's a reserved keyword like select and where. It tells the SOQL that we want to order by a certain field. And then I will put here which field I want to order by. Do we want to order by the custom created date? Do we want to order by the future date here? Because I have all the custom created date populated, I will start with that. So I will do custom created date, and I will start by doing ascending, for example. You'll notice here we had them in random order. Now, if I do ascending, you'll find that it started with the oldest, so 2017, 18, 19, 21, and the latest was 2024. So that's in case you want to see the oldest first, and then you want to see the newest at the end. If you want to switch back and like you want the different order that you want to see the latest first, you do descending. So you do descending, and in that case, it sorts the newest first and then goes till 2017. So here I want to see something. Do I need always to sort by one field? Let's say here, for example, you have here bright stars. It's created, custom created date. It's 25th of October. And the same sunshine as well. Like if I have two, for example, that are sorted or they have the same date, I may want to sort with the second field. So in Salesforce and SOQL, we can do that. So I can here the future date to have here this one in November and the second one in December. I may want to sort as well. Like if the custom created date is the same, I want to sort then as well with the future date. Any suggestion how to do that? I will check the chat. Okay.
I didn't get what you said. Sorry. Can you please?
Sorry.
I didn't get the question you asked. Can you please come again?
The question I'm asking is that now if you notice we are sorting by the custom created date ascending. That means we see the oldest first and then the newest at the end, right? Is that clear?
Okay, yes, that's clear.
Okay, so now we have two records here. They have the same custom created date. Bright stars and sunshine energy. Both of them are 25th of October. They are exactly the same day, month, and year. Now I want to sort them. If I see two records with the same custom created date, I want to have a second field to sort them by, which is the future date. I wanted to sort it ascending, the oldest first. So I would expect that sunshine energy come first, then bright stars, the second record in the order. So I was just wondering, can you suggest how can we do that in the SOQL?
Oh, no, no. I have no
Okay.
idea.
Okay, so the same here. We did order by, and we chose which field we want to order by, and we chose that we want to do ascending. So the same, I would do a comma here, and I would say the second sorting I want to have would be the future date. And I will do here ascending, that I want it to be from the oldest to the newest as well. So if I run now again, you'll notice that the records here are all the same except for the sunshine energy and bright stars. Bright stars was the first, now it became the second because we added here the future date to be second sorting. Let me remove it and do an
Sorry,
export. So
can I
I
ask a
can,
question?
yes, let me take it for you
Okay.
here. I will,
Okay, does it mean that future date overrides the custom created date?
it's not overriding, it's second sorting. Like I'm telling the SOQL, if you have same value for the custom create date, I want you to
Okay.
use another field to sort those records with.
Okay. All right.
So you'll notice here, let's see here. I put them side by side so you can see them. The first one, we were sorting only with the custom created date. You'll find that here, when we sorted with the custom and future, we got Elite Tech first. It's the same. Orly's book, the second. All is the same. The only change you in the end, the last one is ACME supplies. So everything is the same except here. Except here we had Bright Stars first. Here it became second. We got Sunshine Energy first because those two records, Sunshine and Bright Stars, are the two records that had the same value for custom created date. So what happened is that we moved to the future date to sort them. And in that case, the Sunshine Energy had the month of October, and the Bright Stars had the November as the month. So that's why when we sorted with the future date as well, the Sunshine Energy came first. Okay?
All right. Thank you. Yes, it's clear.
Okay, so that's great. So that's how we can do the sorting. And it's important to see it in action. And it's important to know that you can do ascending or descending. And sometimes it's useful to have a secondary sorting if needed. If you see that you have a lot of like, let's say we sort by last name and we have a lot of Adam as last name. So maybe I want to have a second sorting by first name. So all the Adams as a last name will be sorted based on their first name in that case. If I have first and last name first and then the first name as a second sorting. So sometimes it's important in such scenarios where you may have fields that have repetitive values and you want to sort them by secondary field that most likely it will be unique and it will help me with the sorting. So that's the purpose of sorting. It helps you sorting the values, the importance for them. Sometimes you want to see, for example, the last two created orders, for example. So in that case, I would do descending, for example. So I know that the first two records are the latest. So I can limit my query to return just two. And that takes me to the second thing that I wanted to show you here in the slide, which is the limit. The limit will just help the query. I don't want you to return everything. So here it returned everything we had that matched the result. But let's say I wanted to show the last two accounts for their custom created date, the latest two. So I would do limit here and limit two. You see here, we got exported 9 records. If I do now, I got just 2 records. And those 2 records will be the 2 latest, the ACME supplies and Superstar. So if I remove it again, so you can see it, you will have here ACME, Superstars, and others. If I do the limit and enter the number, it will limit it to that number. If I want just one record, maybe I'm interested in the latest, I will just get the ACME. If I do, for example, 5, I will get the first 5. And in that case, this sorting most probably will be important, because if I don't sort, I may get random values. I may get one that was created in 2017 and another one in 2014 and one in 2018, and we missed the 2019. So I find it useful when you do like limit and other functions as the offset and stuff like that. It's very important to do the sorting first. So we order by a specific field and then we limit. If that's the case, sometimes you will do the limit without the sorting. Like there is nothing that tells me I have to. I can do that. I can remove the order altogether and just limit the result to 5. I will get random. See, 2018, 19, 21. I didn't get 2014, 2024, or 2021, 2017. So it will be the random, like in whatever order the SOQL will return it for us, and we will limit it to the first 5. So sometimes you want to force some order first and before doing the limit. So the benefit of the two, one is ordering your results. So if you want to see it in a certain order, you want to see the latest first, the oldest first. So it helps you instead of getting the values and sorting them just for before displaying on the screen, you can get them sorted for you. The limit, the benefit is that it can limit the numbers for you. So for example, if I do here select first name, last name from contact, and I run the export here, I got 53. I can do a limit. I want to limit the first 19 only. I want you to return me 19 contacts. So it's useful. The benefit or the limit is very important and critical to use when you are using a large set of data, and specifically if you don't have a where clause or something to limit the results that you are returning, or you know that most probably as well, with this number of records, you may hit the limit for you don't want to exceed the limit, the governor limit for the maximum numbers of records you can retrieve. So it's always a good idea when you work with SOQL and you're retrieving data and you know that you have a huge amount of data, to limit it to a certain number so you don't hit the governor limit and your query doesn't take forever as well to run. So it's important to keep that in mind. So that's the benefit of order by and the benefit of the limit. Any questions?
No question. We are good.
Okay, great. And no questions in the chat too. So we'll move to the next. The next topic. So here I'm just adding some description. The order by allows you to sort query results by one or more fields. And we saw that with the custom created date and the future date, and how the more than one field was beneficial when we had the same creation date. The limit, as we said, it restricts the number returned by the query. And we said it's very important, specifically when you have queries that, it return lots of records, or you may hit a limit, or sometimes as well, it depends on your theme and your lead or like your TA. Sometimes we prefer to put it as a safeguard, because you may start with an org where the number of records are not much and your query is not returning much of data, but maybe in the future more data will come, they will upload data from another system, and suddenly your query may hit a limit or governor limit and your apps won't work as expected. So sometimes, even if currently you don't have much data, it's preferred to have the limit so you don't hit the governor limit in the future. Okay, the next topic that we want to discuss is the offset. The offset is another way of limiting how many records you want to return, and it's used combined by the order by, and it's combined by the limit most probably, because it's used in pagination. So let's show you here what do I mean by pagination. and what's the benefit of it. So here, let's assume I have this query. So this query we have, we are selecting name, first name, last name, account ID from contact, and we are ordering by the first name. So we have here all the Alice first, and then Alice Thursday, then Andy, and so on. So here we have 53 records. Again, assume that we have 500 accounts, contact that will return from this. It's not a good idea to display to the user on the screen 500 records in a list and they scroll down just checking it. It will not look nice. So sometimes we tend to do pagination, and pagination means I want to return them in chunks. Like I want to return 10 at a time or 5 at a time. So let's see how we can do that. So if I want to return 5, for example, we learned about the limit to return 5. But the limit 5 here, it got me the first 5 records, and that's it. There is nothing that I can write now or if I run this query 5 times, I will always get Alice Smith 2 times, then Alice 1, 10, 2, and so on. So if I run, it's the same, and it will keep the same. So the key for that, and to do pagination, we'll do offset. We write offset and we write the number of records that we want to skip. So the number that comes after offset means how many records do you want to skip? So let me remove this first. I'll show you here. Let me take this. I put it in the Word document so it's more clear. So here I have from Alice till Ashley, for example. So I will do again limit 5. I want to get them 5 by 5, and I will do offset 0. Offset 0 means I don't want to skip. 0 records will be skipped. So that means I'll go get the first 5. I get Alice, Alice Smith, Alice 1. This is the 4th, and this is the 5th. So I stop at Alice 2. So I got the first 5 records. Now I got the first 5. When I hit next, I want to get the next 5. So I want to get 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 until I get limit of 5. To do that, we'll do here offset. I want to skip 5 records because I got them as the first page that I displayed on the UI. I want to skip the next 5, the first 5. So when I do that, I got from 3 to 7. So we skipped 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we skipped 5 records, and we got the next 5. And that's why as well it's important to order. So you have the same order. So you skipped the first 5, and you got the second 5. And that's why an order limit, because it's part of the pagination. Like I want to get them into 5 chunk of 5s, so I will skip the first 5 and get the next 5. Now, if I want to get from Alice 8, that means I want to skip here 10 records. So do you know what should I change here in my query to skip the first 10 records?
Yeah, you change the offset to 10.
I'll change offset to 10. Sorry, so here I will get from Alice 8, 9, Alice Thursday 1, 10, and so on. So that's how you can do pagination. You do the limit, and it doesn't make sense, for example, to do skip 5 and I want to return 6. Because then, like, you're skipping the first 5 and getting 6 records. The next time, like, if you skip 10 records, you will get 1 common that came in the first query. So it's very, in my opinion, unless there is a reason why you want to do it, most probably like the limit the offset will be an increment of this limit. So if you have 5, it will be 5, 10, 15, 20. If you have 6, so it will be 6, 12, and so on. So that's at least from my opinion. And again, when you do 0, that means I don't want to do any skipping. Get me from the first record. So the first time you will run it, if you are having pagination, the first time it will be 0. Next page, it will be 5, 10, 15. How many records you want to skip. Is that clear? How to use the offset and why it's useful?
Yeah, it is very clear.
Okay. So that's the offset. So we saw the select and from, we said they are required. We visited together the where clause and how we run it. Then we saw how we can order the results, ascending and descending in multiple fields. We checked together the limit and the importance of limit. Then finally, we checked the offset and how we can use it to do pagination. The second part of it will be how, like, the table or how you do the UI for your page, but like that's the query behind. Like you will be using offsets and doing an increment to skip them and show chunks each time. And that's again, not just for the UI and how you display it, but it's useful if you have like huge number of records and you want to avoid having a governor limit hit. Next, we'll learn about the aggregation. So the aggregation is useful and it means like you're returning a summary. How like the aggregation functions that are common and you may like use can be the count, like how many accounts I have or how many accounts got created today, or a sum, like sum of the opportunities that got closed this month. The average, like if you have students and you want to see specific exam for a specific term, like what was their average, the same minimum, maximum. So those are common functions that we can use in SOQL. And we want to see together how we can do that directly in SOQL statement and how we can use the values for it. So let me get here 1, and we run it together. So here I did a select statement where I'm doing get me the count of IDs, sum of annual revenue for account where the industry is education. So I want to get all the accounts with industry education. I want to see how many accounts I have and their annual revenue as well. So the from and the where is very similar to what we had before. The select as a keyword is similar. The only difference you will have here is the aggregation function. So the count is a common aggregation function. Even here, like it shows that we have it. It takes bracket open and close, like you can think about it as we call a method in Apex. We have a bracket open and close, and then you say, I want to count what? I want to count the IDs. So that means I will count how many I have. And here I want to sum, and between brackets, what I want to sum, as if I'm passing a parameter for this method. So I'm saying to this method, I want you to calculate for me the sum of the annual revenue for the accounts that were returned in this query. If I run now the export, it will see like we have only one record returned. It's not like what we had or what we used to see that we returned 53 contacts or 19 accounts. Like we have only one result. And here it shows aggregate result, and we will see what that means exactly and how to deal with it in Apex. But here we'll see that it returned, we used to return like the name, the annual revenue, the first name, last name, stuff like that. And we used to see in the header of the columns, like here, what's the name, what's the first name, what's the last name. That's the header of the column. And here, all of them are type contact. here, instead, we are getting only one aggregate result, and then we got expression 0. Expression 0 will be the first expression that you had, which is the count IDs. So for account IDs, it's expression 0, and I have it as a 4. That means I have 4 accounts or that satisfy this condition. So let me show it to you in another tab. I can have this, and instead of the aggregate, I can show ID here, and I can show you here the annual revenue. I expect here when I run that I have the same for records, but you'll see here, instead of the aggregate result, we got accounts. So I got the 4 accounts and their details. What's the ID? What's the annual revenue? Here instead, I'm getting only one record of aggregate result, and we are getting that expression 0 is 4. Expression 1, which will be the second expression, is that value, which is the sum of all the annual revenues. So if you calculate those values, it will give you the same, like all the values in the annual revenue will be the value that we got here in the aggregation. So something that I don't like about that is that sometimes when you have different aggregation, it's hard to remember that the first one was the count, second one was annual. You may say here it's easy to spot because it's under it, but let's see in Apex first, because most probably you'll be dealing with that in Apex. So let me here open the developer console to see how we will deal with the aggregate results as well. Let me open here, and I will take this back. I'll take this one. If you remember when we were talking about SObjects before starting the SOQL, we were talking about the SObjects and how we can return the query into SObjects when we do the select statement. So here I have the SOQL that we did that I want to return. So that will return a list of accounts. So I do lst account. And then I can print it here, system.debug, check accounts. And I will do here, I want to check the list of accounts. If I execute this and debug, I will see that it will list for me the 4 accounts with their revenue. Account 1, the ID and revenue, account 2, 3, and 4. So that's how we used to do it when we were not using aggregate results. Now it's different because now, as we saw, it's not returning accounts as the regular SOQL statements is returning accounts. We are returning aggregate result. So let's see how we can do it in Apex as well. So let me keep it, okay. And then I will do here, I get this query. Let me get it. If I do that here, I have the same query that we tried, the count ID, annual revenue from account for industry. If I try to put it in a list of accounts, for example, and try to execute, it will give me an error. It will tell me that in line 4, it's illegal assignment from list of aggregate result to list of accounts. So it's saying that this one will return a list of aggregate result, but I'm trying to put it in a list of account. So that's the error. So that means I can return it to a list of aggregate results. And I put here list of results. Then we will look through them so we can see how we can get the value. For that, something we learn with the for each. So it's a list of aggregate results. So I get one by one. And I will print it. Okay. So I will do like that. Integer count, because I know the first expression that we tried here to together. The first expression was the count. The expression 1 is the annual revenue. So I will say the count, and I will say I want to return. Let's see how first. I will return here result object dot get, and I will give the name of the expression I want to return. So expression 0. And then I have here decimal, and I will say revenue, and I will say result object dot get, and I will say expression 1. If I try to run this one, it will give me an error. Let me show you the error first. It will say it's an illegal assignment from object to integer in line 6. The reason why, because here the aggregate results doesn't know the data type. So I'm getting something called expression 0, the value for it. And I'm getting the value of expression 1. But it doesn't know, because it's generic, it's object. It doesn't know if it's integer or decimal. So we have to do typecasting here. I would say I want this to be treated as an integer. So I will cast it to be an integer, and I will get it and put it here. And here I will do the same for the decimal. And then let me print it for you. And I printed the bug. The revenue as well, sorry. I print the revenue. Okay, let me execute it here. Okay, see, I put here invalid field exp 0 for aggregate result. So that's because I did a mistake here. It's called expr. I put it without the r. So if I go here, I have to put r. I'm missing the r. Expression 1 and expression 0. If I run it now, I will get 4, and the total revenue, I got it here. So it worked as expected, but there's something that, at least for me, it's annoying. I have to remember that the first one was the count. I have to remember that the second one is 1, not 2, for example. It's not like that. If I do expression 2, it will say it's invalid field. It doesn't find this field. So it's hard for me to remember expression 0, expression 1, expression 2 in terms of order and in terms of names as well. It's not like very friendly for me. So the other way to do that, and the same here, instead of showing expression 0 and 1, we can do alias. We can give it a name. So after here count, ID, I can give it here name count accounts. Or maybe I will do here, it's called number accounts. And here, total revenue. So I can give it a name. So that means when I will run here, remember here it was expression 0 and expression 1. When I will execute it now, it will be number of accounts and total revenue instead. So if I do that here, it's number of accounts and total revenue instead of expression 0 and expression 1. So that's here, and it's easy to see. In the code, sometimes you do the aggregation here, and then you can loop through it and use the value later on. So it's easy for me to remember that I had found the total revenue instead of expression 1. And it's easier for me to remember that it was called number of accounts instead of total revenue. And also, it's easier for me to map that I'm getting the number of accounts and I'm putting it in account. Because simply, I could do, by mistake, switch this, put in the revenue expression 0, and in count, I could put 1, which is the sum of total revenue. So it's easier to remember the name if we put an alias, and it's more like if let's say you have a big function or you have a function and you don't use them close to each other and you see this for loop after a couple of lines, it's easy for you to know that you're, yes, I'm getting the number of accounts. Yes, I'm getting the total revenue instead of expression 0 and expression 1, expression 2, and so on. If I run it, we'll get the same result. So there is no like big change there. We got the count and we got the total revenue. The only difference is that it's more user-friendly for me now to remember that this is called the sum and this is called the total revenue. And it's easier to use and it's easier to read the code as well instead of expression 0, 1, 2, and it limits the errors as well. So that's what we call alias. You give it to the aggregation function, so it doesn't give like Salesforce generate for you names like with auto increment 0, 1, 2, 3 with expression expr, and it keeps adding 0, 1, 2, 3 for you. So instead of using and relying on the names that Salesforce will give you, you just name it and you start using it with this way. So that's the aggregation and how you can use it with Salesforce and how it can benefit how you will be using alias and how, in my opinion, it's preferred to use the alias instead of just relying on expression 0, 1, 2, 3. Any questions?
Yeah, no question. No, it's very clear for me.
Okay, great. And no questions in the chat too. So yeah, so we have, you can play around with the average. We tried the count and sum. You can play with the average, minimum, and maximum and see how it works. We saw together how we can handle the aggregate results in Salesforce, because in Salesforce, as we said, like when we used to have non-aggregate queries, we were returning a list of objects, and it was the same like data type of the account, like the object you are selecting from. With aggregation, it doesn't matter. We are doing an aggregation on account or opportunities or context. It will always return aggregate results, and you will be working with the alias, in my opinion, better for you to make it more user-friendly. So we saw together how we can use aggregate results and how you can extract the values from it, whether using the auto-generated name or using the alias. Okay, there is another layer that we want to cover before we end the session for today, which is filtering, grouping and filtering the results of the aggregation using group by and halving. And we want to see what's the difference between group by and halving, and what's the difference between halving and where close as well. So group by, we want to group the records based on a specific fields. And that means I want to do an aggregation in groups. So I want to aggregate for all the accounts for technology versus how many accounts and annual revenue I have for the accounts for education. So I can want to split them into groups and still do the aggregation around them. So it's used to aggregate data by categories or groups. Halving, it's a query or like it's a filtering to the aggregated results. And we'll know, I will show you an example to explain better. And it works like the where clause, but it applies to the conditions, like it applies the conditions to group records. So we group the records and then we apply the have. The difference between the where and the have, the where filters records before the aggregation itself. The having filters the record after the aggregation. I know it's a bit confusing, so let's jump first to an example and see it with an example. And then if you still have an issue with it, we can go through it again. But simply, the group by will group the results. So what does that mean? So let me go here to my query, the extension, and I will get here. Here, that's what we just did. That we got, what's the count? Accounts. And what's the total revenue? from accounts. So that tells me I have 66 accounts, and that's the total revenue. But sometimes I want, as I said, I want to see it by group. So I will say here, I want you to group by, and group by is a reserved keyword that we will be using. And I will say I want you to group by the industry. So I want you to group it by industry. It will show me that I have an industry with one, and that's total revenue, and it will keep that. But I want to see as well what industry that was. So I will do here, industry. I will add the industry as one of the records I want to see. So here it shows to me that chemicals have one, construction is one, education had four, and this is the annual revenue for it, energy four, electronics one. So it grouped it by industry. So it gives me for each industry how many accounts I have and what's the total revenue. So that's what group by means, that you want to group it. Before that, I had only one aggregation result, and it was all the accounts 66 and their total revenue here. And that's why, like, someone was maybe wondering why, if we have like an aggregation result, one of them, like why we have a list. The reason why, because you may have a group by and you may have multiple. So you have, for this industry, you have two, but for this is four, and that's the total. So you may have different values and different aggregation result by industry. The second thing that we wanted to see is the where. So let's keep an eye on what are the differences we will have. So here I will say I want to show or to get that, like, all the accounts where annual revenue greater than, and I will take this number. Okay, let's see for, I think, education. Okay, let's keep an eye on the education. I put the value here. So we have this number, okay? But here I'm saying, do for me an aggregation for all the accounts that have the annual revenue greater than this number and group them by industry. So what will happen here? Let me take the results as well here so you can see the difference. So I have here, one is that I'm having a group by and I have the values by industry. Now I will apply the where clause, and that means I will filter the records before doing the aggregation. So the SOQL, as if I don't have the aggregation and I don't have the group by, will first filter the records before doing the aggregation on them. So I will filter which records we are doing aggregation for. So you will notice here in education, we have a different value. It's not anymore the 1,000 or 10,000, 1,000 at the end. It's without that number at the end because we said, get me only the accounts with that number. So it excluded some accounts, and we have now 2 accounts in education versus the 4, I guess we had here 4. Now we have with this, we have only 2 for education, and the number was different. So the where apply first before doing the grouping or the aggregation. Okay, the next you will say that I want to having some annual revenue greater than this number, and that means some of those accounts or those aggregation results will go away, because what happened is that we filtered by the records, we did the aggregation and we grouped them. Then we'll apply the halving here. The halving will filter the groups in the aggregation results one more level, like it won't show the ones that doesn't fit this criteria. So here we have 14 records. Let's run it with the halving. Now we have 9 records. So it removed some accounts, some aggregation for me. So here you will find that we have all of those. Some of them are not there anymore. So they are not part of the results. Like media, for example, is not there anymore. Retail is not there anymore. So some of the records didn't fit the criteria after doing the aggregation, and the value got like excluded because it doesn't match the criteria. So again, the group by is used to group the records based on specific fields, as we saw with the industry. So we filter them. I don't want to see the aggregation as a bulk. I want to see group by certain field. Having, it filters the aggregation results after doing the aggregation. The where, we said it will filter before doing the aggregation. We saw that, like, it does filter the records and return the records that fit the criteria first, then do the aggregation and show it to you. Having, after filtering the records, doing their aggregation and group them, we go check each group. Does it fit the having clause or not? If yes, it will be included in the results. If no, it got excluded. So that's the difference. Sometimes people confuse having and where clause, but they are different. One is happening before the aggregation, and the having is after the aggregation. Any questions?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So, and no questions in the chat too. So I think we are good. Today was the second session of the SOQL. I hope it was useful. Try to play with the aggregation. Try to play with the group by and having, add some records, play with their values, see how the having versus the where is working. Play with the aggregation, try it in developer console, execute anonymous that you have the list of aggregate result. It's different than the list of SObject. Keep your hands busy until we meet next time. Next time we'll continue with the SOQL as well. We'll focus on how we get the results of the parent while working with the child record, or how we can get the child records along with the parent. So it will be useful and we use it a lot. So don't miss it. And if you have any sessions that you missed, check YouTube. If you have any questions until next time, message me on Slack or LinkedIn, and I will be happy to help you. Thank you again for attending. And thank you if you're watching the video offline. And I will see you next Thursday at 7 p.m. Thank you.